G'day folks, I'm Wren, they, them, and today I want to talk about 5 queer middle grade books. So I love me some queer middle grade. There is something so healing about a middle grade book featuring a queer character. I wish I had had this kind of representation when I was a kid. It would have been helpful, let's just say that. So the first middle grade book I want to talk about is one you've probably heard me talk about before because it is my favorite middle grade story. And that is The Other Boy by M.G. Hennessy. This is about a trans boy. He has, kept his trans identity a secret from his friends. Like, he doesn't have to tell anyone, that's fair. He has the full support of one of his parents, not both of them. I really love that this went into those kind of dynamics as well. What happens in this is he's part of a baseball team and he really, really loves it. He has like a best friend on the team and it's great, but some of the other boys start questioning why he doesn't use the change rooms like they do. Things happen. I will say there is an outing in this, so if that is a trigger for you, then be very aware that there is an outing in this. But I really love this story because it was one of the first trans middle grade stories that I had read, especially where in this we are talking about some medical transitions as well. So he is going to a doctor, he's going on hormone blockers, and they're discussing the more medical things that can be done for him, which is really cool to see in a middle grade story. And I think kids should be aware of that. And I mean, like, they are more so aware of it nowadays. Back in my day, we weren't, didn't shy away from that kind of representation as well. One of the other things I really love about this is the friendship. This kid and his best friend are like so stereotypically like 12-year-old boys in that, like, they like gross stuff and they think it's hilarious. And that's just so precious. The ending of this story nearly had me in tears because it was so beautiful and uplifting and, like, reassuring, because there are a lot of times where trans stories are upsetting and horrific because of their realness. Sometimes you just want to see the joy in being trans, which there is so much joy in being trans, and this does touch on some of those things. So it is a beautiful, beautiful story. I want more people to read it because I'm obsessed. Next up is a pretty well-known queer middle grade story, but that is Ivy Aberdeen's Letter to the World by Ashley Herring Blake. I read this years ago and I can still feel those kind of emotions that this book brought out in me. Ashley Herring Blake is a phenomenal writer, one of my favorites, and just stunningly written, I will say that. So in this, we're following this young girl. Her and her family have just been through a tornado and it destroyed their house. So they are all safe, but their house was destroyed. It's unlivable, it's unsafe. So they have to now fit, a family of, I think, 5 into like one hotel room. Like, it's a lot. Obviously her parents are really trying to figure out life because they just went through this really traumatic thing and they need to know how to get back on their feet. So, her parents are kind of not as attentive as they could be, but they are dealing with a lot of things, so it's a like good bad situation kind of thing. But one of the things that this girl was really worried about is that in that tornado, she has lost a sketchbook. And in that book, she has drawn pictures of her holding hands with other girls. And she hasn't told anyone about these feelings that she's been having, and she wants to keep them a secret, but the book's gone missing. She knows that, someone around her could have it because when she goes back to school, somebody starts leaving those pictures in her locker. Absolutely terrifying. So she's trying to figure out who is sending her these pictures and trying to figure out, if she should tell people about her feelings and trying to be comfortable with that. Also trying to deal with the fact that someone is creepily like leaving her messages saying, I know about this, you should tell someone, people will find out one day. It's like, that's creepy as I really love this girl's journey throughout this book. It's such a realistic story. Compared to The Other Boy, where it had this really happy ending, everything worked out, this does have a happy ending, but it's also realistic because it does talk about having unrequited feelings. And as a queer kid, you have those feelings. And as an adult, you still have those kind of things happen to you because not everyone in the world is queer, which is very sad. But I really love her journey of really having to find out who she is and, you know, solidify these feelings that she's kind of been ignoring, kind of been playing with, but to really kind of face the fears that she has around her sexuality. One of the main things that really made me emotional in this was the dynamics with her family. So she feels really, really left out in her family. I can remember that feeling of like isolation that she kind of felt because Ashley Herring Blake did such a good job writing it. And I love when authors can do that. I think Ashley Herring Blake did a fantastic job with this, but this is a phenomenal, phenomenal book and I really want everyone to read it. It's so good. Next up is a graphic novel, and that is The Deep and Dark Blue by Nikki Smith. This is a fantasy story where we're following these two twins and they have just survived a coup and they are now going in hiding because people are chasing them. They need to stay safe, so they go to this kind of convent in a way of these, I don't know, kind of magical women. You know, they hide in this convent, so they have to dress as women. These two kids experience that very differently. So we have the very stereotypical boy, he's like, I don't want to wear these dresses, I can't wait to get out of them. And then we have the other twin who is living her best life because she has always wanted to be a part of this convent, but has never been able to because society sees her as a boy. And she really embraces herself within this little convent of women, and she develops these powers and that were kind of like passed down from her mother, I believe. She really finds herself in this space and it is so beautiful. I just loved seeing her thrive, and there was one really special moment in this when the twins had to leave the safety of being in hiding, and while the boy is like, oh thank gosh I can take these off, and he's like ready to fight, the other twin is really sad because she thinks that if she leaves and people find out who she is, she won't ever be allowed back. But her twin doesn't understand that. And luckily they have a friend with them that's like, dude, open your eyes. Can't you see your sister is in pain? And he's like, oh, and he has this huge like moment of realization and he just goes with it. And I think that is so powerful. You know, this young boy has just so much love for his sibling that like he doesn't care. He gets it. Like, you know, one moment he thought he had a brother, but in actual fact he's had a sister all along, and he's like, cool, roll with the punches, let's go sis, we gotta go, you know, take back our kingdom. You know, they do it as brother and sister. And I think that's just a beautiful, beautiful moment of just this acceptance from a sibling. That's huge. And I love that, you know, he didn't question it. He was just like, I'm sorry I didn't see this. We will make sure you will have everything you need after we, you know, start a kind of rebellion thing. But it was a really, really beautiful moment. And I also just loved the fantasy world in here. It made me want to start reading fantasy again because it was just so interesting. Like there was a map in here as well somewhere. Yeah, the map at the back, this was like their little convent. And that was just super cool. And also like the art is really cool. I love the kind of magic system that I hadn't experienced before in other fantasy. That could just be a me thing though, because they deal with weaving and threads and those having power. Super, super interesting. Yeah, the main thing, I loved the relationship between these siblings. It was absolutely beautiful. Also, just a really great fantasy story. Next up is another very well-known one, but that also needs some praise here on this channel. And that is King and the Dragonflies by Kaysen Callender. First up, can we just talk about how beautiful this cover is? Stunning. Oh, so stunning. So in this, we are following this young boy who is dealing with a lot of grief because his older brother has just passed. He kind of feels like his brother's essence has gone into some dragonflies, or a particular dragonfly. I can't remember if it was one dragonfly or multiple dragonflies. This boy's having flashbacks to times with his brother and, you know, what would his brother think in this situation and all those kind of things. So he's really trying to come to terms with the fact that his brother is no longer with him, which is absolutely devastating, really impactful, especially for me as I have lost an older sibling, not when I was a kid, but even as an adult, it's still absolutely devastating and world shifting. And so having this young boy go through the same kind of emotions that I had gone through, it was very impactful for me. But we are also following this kid who has a friendship with another boy. Feelings do develop. That does bring a lot of complications with it because the people around them aren't so accepting, and this young boy is struggling because he knows that his older brother would not have been comfortable with him being queer. It's a huge burden on his shoulders that he's trying to deal with, and also trying to help his young friend as well, who is also really struggling with coming out to their parents as well. It's just a really deeply moving story that I want so many people to read because it has beautiful writing, beautiful symmetry. The way Kaurna Calendar has put this imagery of dragonflies and being a part of the soul, and the way this boy is going through his grief, it's just absolutely stunning. Very well done. You know, you feel for this kid because he's going through so much. You know, he's lost his brother, he feels all alone in the world, and he's figuring out that he's queer in a world that doesn't accept him. It's really rough time for this kid. You know, he really blossoms within this story. He finds his worth, he finds love for himself, and that is huge. I think a lot of kids will get a lot of value out of this, but also adults. You don't have to stop reading middle grade just because you are no longer 12 years old, you know? There is amazing middle grade stories that I think everyone should read, and this is one of them. So last up we have, I would still kind of call this a middle grade, but I think it's also classified as like junior fiction maybe. It is on the younger end of middle grade, but I still had a fantastic time reading it and I absolutely loved it, so I want to talk about it. And that is The Great River Rescue by Brooke Scobie and Jade Goodwin, which is book 2 in Yarn Quest. This is very short, you know, really big text. There are pictures as well, so definitely younger middle grade. But this is a Indigenous Australian story, which I absolutely love. It is about these kids and there is this spirit realm and there are spirits of all kinds. In the first book, we followed a story spirit who, you know, had to finish the story to find their way home. In this one, the spirits have come to ask these kids for help because their great river spirit is dying and they don't know how to help. So they ask these kids to come along and help them figure out what has gone wrong with the river and how to help the river. The main kid in this, whose name is P, I love them with my whole heart and soul because P is a little bit older than the 2 younger kids who were the main focus of book 1. P was in book 1, but very briefly, whereas in this, P is the main character. And they are non-binary and they come out in this book. And it was so beautiful in its simplicity because P just walked up to their friend and it's like, hey, you know how I've never felt like a girl or a boy? Well, I figured it out. I'm non-binary. I use they, them pronouns. My name is P. That's it. And the kid's like, oh, okay. And that's it. And some people might not like that. I love it because it doesn't have to be this big, huge thing. You can just come out. And if you have people around you that are supportive, they'll be like, cool, bro. Continues on with their life in a respectful manner. That's all it has to be. And it was beautiful because, you know, there were no other questions. The kid was like, this is who you are. I'll respect that. I'll use the right pronouns. I'll call you P. It's all good. And then they just keep on playing. It's that simple. And that's something I love about kids, is that they do so well at adapting to new situations. So I loved the fact that this just carried on, you know, and no one made it a big deal because it wasn't. Also love Pete because they are autistic. That gets talked about in this. I think the word autism was used once, maybe, I can't quite remember, but you know, P wears headphones quite a lot and they describe the feeling of why they need their headphones. I think they described it as bees buzzing inside their body and it just got more and more and more. But when they put the headphones on, the buzzing went away. Yes, Again, such a simple way of explaining autism. And P's friends go with it. And they realize, you know, when P is feeling overwhelmed, the kids are like, okay, we just got to take P out for a second. You know, they need a moment to not be around 100 people. And like, they just help their friend, and that's beautiful. That's something I love about middle grade books, is that they don't have to overcomplicate things. And like, why can't that be the world? I'm obsessed, okay? I'm obsessed. It's young, but so important. And I think so many kids would really, really benefit from stories like this, where it just casually introduces these things that maybe they didn't know about, but they introduce it in a way where it's totally normalized. I would say that if you did just want to pick up this one, you didn't want to read this series, you can. There's just, you know, in the first one, there's a little bit more of an explanation on the spirit realm, but you get the gist when reading this. They do a good enough job of recapping what happened in the first one in this, and it never felt like info dumping, which was really good. So I think you can definitely just read this one if you wanted to, but I would recommend reading the first one. It's a good time. So there we have it. These are my 5 middle grade queer books that I definitely think you should read. They all have their own amazing moments, amazing representation, and amazing stories. So if you know of any other queer middle grades that you would like to recommend, please leave them down below. I am always keen for some recommendations. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.